way down here on level 1.
So low he could parachute out of a snake's asshole.
Phil once again mentioned his hatred and jealousy of Ivy League schools. It's weird how angry he is at them not accepting him as a student, given how much Phil hates the, quote, book-smart idiots from Ivy League schools that are ruining YouTube. That's the first thing. If Phil had been accepted into an Ivy League school, he was originally studying computer science. So in some weird parallel dimension, Phil is the book-smart idiot ruining YouTube. The irony of Phil's thoughts never ceases to amaze. Also, the idea of Phil finishing a computer science degree is laughable. That's a field that requires an inquisitive mind, the exact opposite of a pig roach. The guy that can't figure out basic fighting game combo flowcharts was somehow supposed to figure out the programming logic of sorting algorithms in databases. It's impossible to imagine. I also like how he tried to explain all of his extracurricular activities that Ivy League schools were supposed to look at and think he deserved a spot at the school. He delivered cookies to some old Jewish women in a nursing home, and he was on a few after-school clubs. What the fuck does that show? He put his name on a couple after-school clubs and probably never showed up after the first or second meeting, and as part of his Catholic school he went to a nursing home once or twice. Who gives a shit? What did he think that would show a school in an application? Usually you put things you did that show off your talents, like mentioning how you were a leader, or you organized some event, or something that shows you have commitment, drive, and leadership. But as Tevin pointed out, Phil's extracurricular activities were the same as someone that got busted for smoking a joint in school. And he also mentioned taking AP exams, which I don't ever remember him mentioning before, but there's no fucking way this simpleton took any AP exams or got any good scores. Phil can barely add numbers in his head. There's no fucking way he took a calculus exam. Phil's understanding of physics rivals that of a caveman's, so there's no fucking way he took a physics exam. Phil flunked out of his first computer science class at college, so there's no way he took the computer science exam, and I'm not even sure that was offered back when he was in high school. Phil has mentioned before he read a bunch of old English literature in high school, so maybe he took the literature exam? I'd love to see how bloated and full of bullshit Phil's reports on books and stories were. That would be a goddamn treasure trove. Phil somehow became the valedictorian of his class, which is highly suspicious. I know it's been confirmed on the farms, but it just seems impossible to believe if you look at Phil today. I was friends with several people in my high school that were trying to become valedictorian, and there were a lot of bullshit games they played to try and game the system. They spent days trying to figure out what classes they would take, in which year, with which teachers, just to make sure they had the best shot at getting the best grades. Phil has a bit of that scam artist bullshitter in him, so maybe he played those games while in high school? I'm suspicious. He never mentions the other people he was competing with for the top spot. I wasn't a part of that game myself, but for everyone in my high school that was trying to be the valedictorian, they were constantly trying to figure out what grades the others had, what classes they were planning on taking, what teachers they were buttering up to, what clubs they claimed to have joined, and so on and so on. It was a game with a lot of moving pieces, and yet Phil never mentions any of it. So either he's lying about it, or more likely it was just a bad school. Phil has mentioned before that he grew up in the ghetto, so the likelihood that he was just a medium-sized fish in a small pond is extremely high. Because apparently the only people in his class that went to an Ivy League school were on sports scholarships. In my graduating class, all of the people competing for the top spot got accepted, and it turned out the 0.05 difference in GPA didn't matter that much. But the best part of the story was Phil's lesson that he apparently learned from it. Quote, "Don't try." And Phil is such a fucking narcissistic coward that he wasn't even the one to come up with that lesson, apparently. It was some high school teacher that told Phil he'd never get anywhere in life if he puts in any effort. And boy, did that advice help Phil in his life. I mean, let's just see how well that paid off for him. He went to college and flunked out of his first 2 choices of degrees. He stumbled his way into one of the easiest degrees to finish, a finance degree, which he then never turned into a career because he literally didn't know anyone at his school. Somehow, despite his dorm apparently being the party room for half of campus, he got fired from every single job he's ever had. He got fired from Best Buy because he used his employee discount to buy a bunch of PlayStations, but it was only for a couple of dollars. and it was proven in court that they illegally fired him. So I think it's pretty obvious that they just wanted an excuse to get Phil out of the building, to the point that they were willing to violate his contract to get him out. That says a lot about Phil. He got fired from being a salad tosser at the mall. He claims to have quit the loan sharking business he worked at for Wells Fargo, but Phil trying to convince anyone he has issues with scamming people out of money is ridiculous. He got fired from being a customer service rep at the helicopter company, despite his own father being his boss. He got fired from the AdSense program. He got fired from Blip TV. He got fired from Machinima. Half of his channels have been demonetized or fired from YouTube. He got fired from Twitch. And now he's struggling on YouTube, where damn near every one of his peers looks down on him and openly mocks him. Yeah, Phil, not putting in any effort has really helped you in life. He's now halfway through his life. He's lost both the only woman he's ever loved and the only man he's ever loved. Despite spending $2.5 million in the last decade, he has nothing to show for it. He hasn't even accidentally bought anything interesting. At least a red Mustang with a black racing stripe is a cool-looking car. His only home is falling into disrepair faster than his membership count when the whales don't show up. His audience is apparently so dented, they were too stupid to understand they were supposed to be scammed by his recent DSP Reacts channel reveal. His wife would rather spend Phil's only day off alone by herself playing Skyrim for the umpteenth time instead of spending it with Phil. And he couldn't even put in the effort to wake up for a 4:30 p.m. dinner reservation on the only day when neither of them were working. So they got carry-out sushi on Valentine's Day. His cat's son would rather spend time with his wife. He's developed a gacha addiction for Sweaty Man JPEGs. His alcoholism is so bad he's doing one event per month where people can pay him to drink shots, when it used to be something he only did once a year for Christmas. And if Phil's stories are to believe, his standard gin and tonic has 5 shots of gin in it. There's barely any room for the tonic at that point. Holy fucking hell. If there's a lesson to be learned, it sure as fuck isn't the one Phil took away. If anything, the thing you should take away is the exact opposite of Phil's don't put any effort in at all lesson. Because it sure as fuck hasn't worked out for him.
So low he could parachute out of a snake's asshole.